Hi guys, Shelley Fitzgerald. So here's the last video on this series of getting these labels completed. So in the third one that I just posted, we made the little car, we made the little dump truck, and this is where I am headed to get these exactly right so that I can stitch them out, get them on the bags. So I've got a blank design. If you need to get a new blank design, choose the paper. And I am going to first create an outline using my rectangle tool. And I'm going to just go to a single outline. I'm going to use a green color. And I'm just going to click and drag and click again. And then I've got a little rectangle, and this is going to represent the perimeter of my label. So I've decided that the location that I need this should be 8 by 2. I'm cutting the fabric 8.5 by 2.5. So I'm going to select this and make sure that the proportional scaling is unlocked this time and make it 8 wide and 2 high. And then I'll push 0 again. And so that will be where the little design needs to fit inside. And that will give me a 1/4 inch seam allowance on all edges. That's also the very first thing that I will stitch onto my stabilizer. And that will show me where to place the fabric down. In fact, I probably at the end will duplicate that line so that I can put the fabric down and then sew it again in place so that it's held down. So now I want to open the little car. I'm going to draw a bounding box around the whole thing. Well, let's work on the little car stitch out right here first though. So the way it's going to stitch right now, it would be the blue car, then the bumper, then the white windows, then one yellow tire, the white insert, the second yellow tire, the white insert, then the black bumper. I think the black bumper should be first, so I'm going to go up here to move to start. And now the very first thing on the little car that we'll stitch will be the little black bumper. Then the body, that's fine. The blue, that's fine. Then all of this could be optimized a little bit so that the we don't have to change from white, yellow. So I am going to come up to the design word up here, and underneath it says optimize color changes. And I'm going to click on that, and it's going to tell me that it can change it from 7 to 6. I'll say OK. And actually, even though that did a nice job, I believe I also could get away with moving this white down to combine with the other white, because that could all be stitched at the same time. So here we go. We would now have the black, and then the body of the blue underbelly, the 2 yellow tires, and then all of the white, and that will be fine. So I'm going to select it all again, draw the bounding box, right click and group it. I'm going to mirror image it because I want my little car going the other direction. And I will then select it again, and I'm going to choose copy and go over to my rectangle and choose paste. Control V. I'm going to move it a little bit over here. So then I'm going to get my little truck. So I believe that I would prefer the lines, the bed of the truck right here, to stitch, and then the orange to be on top of that. So I'm going to move that. Let's see, I'm going to move it back one color, back one color. So now I'm going to have the mixer, and then this line structure for the bed of the truck, and then the orange, And then the white, I think I could move down forward one color until it gets with all the white. There I'll select more whites. I'll hit the Alt key so that and I'll move it forward one color. Now I'll select the whites and I'll move it forward one color. And so now it should be just the way I want it. There's the mixer, the bed of the truck, the orange cab of the truck, the black wheels, and then all of the white on top. I like that. Right click and push group. So I like that. I also will select it all and hit copy. I'll come over to the design and hit paste. Control V on my keyboard is paste. I'll put it over here. Now in the middle, I'm going to choose lettering. I'm going to right click on this word lettering in the digitize toolbox. When I right click on that, it opens the object property. I'm going to type Henry. And I've already played with all these fonts and know that I want it to be in the Drifter font. Now you kind of, when you type, you can kind of get the beginnings of a visual like this. And you know, you just click one, apply and look, apply and look. But I'm going to just have the Drifter font and I'll say OK, and now I have to click somewhere for that to appear. So I'll click right here and there is the word Henry. I am going to shift I'm going to make this grow from the middle out by holding the Shift key and increasing the size until I kind of like it. And then I'm going to visually put this little car, maybe 1/4 inch from the edge. This little truck, maybe 1/4 inch from the edge. Then I'm going to take the word Henry and I'm going to make it just a little bit smaller so that I know what I'm going to do. I want to go into the Edit toolbox and I want to break it apart. So now I can grab this H all by itself and increase that size. I usually like to increase the first capital letter. Then I'm going to hold Control and get all the other letters again for the name Henry, right click and group that name back together even though they're individual. They're still grouped. So now I have 3 grouped objects, and I've kind of positioned the outside 2. So I'm going to select all of them, Control, Control, Control. So I've selected all 3. Go into the Arrange toolbox. You also have the Arrange menu, same thing. You could use the drop-down menu or you can come into the Arrange toolbox. And first I want to line the bottom of all 3 of those objects. And then because I have 3, I can space evenly across. And I can look and see if I like that. And I do. So now I'm going to take the 3 objects, Control, Control, click, Control, click. And I'm going to right click and group those 3. Oops. And now I hit 0 to come back after zooming out. I can now select everything, Control A, and align centers. And that will kind of just center it in that box. So I can save that, File, Save As, and I can call that Henry name label. Save. Now I'm going to Control A, copy, paste it. Now I've got 2. And because I want to stitch these in one hooping, so I'm just going to go ahead and change the Henry to John. So I'm going to right click and ungroup in this second one. Let me just delete it. It's fastest. We can deal with it, but I'm just going to delete it. I'm going to go to digitize. I'm going to lettering. I'll right click. This time I'm still in the Drifter font, and I'm going to type John. And then I can say OK, click, and there is John's name. I'll hold the shift and make it bigger. And I'm going to break it apart. Make sure I like those size of those letters. I might make them just a little bit bigger. So I'm going into Edit, Break Apart. The J in the Drifter font I don't care for. So I'm going to double click, and I found the Christopher font, and I did like it. So I'm going to scroll down and change that to Christopher. And I did that just by clicking and playing and clicking and playing. And so there is the Christopher font, and I'm going to increase that again, just like I did before. And I'm going to control, control, control. I think I'll move those over a little bit. Now I'm going to hit control and make sure that the bottom of all the letters are aligned. So there, I aligned the bottom. I'm going to select the J only and move it over a little bit closer. I like that. And then I'm going to hold the control and get all the letters of the name John again, right click and group. I might make that just a tad smaller as a whole name. So I did not move the car or the truck. I'm going to select the truck and the car. Now all three things are selected. I'm going to align the bottom of all three. I'm going to space evenly across on all three. Let me click out so that nothing is selected and hit control, escape. Get nothing selected. I want the truck, the name John, the car, and I'm going to right click and group those. Then I'm going to hold control and add the outer layer. And then I'm going to align centers. So now I've got Henry, I've got John, and I've got those in the little squares the way I want them. And so then the last thing I want to do is kind of check the stitch out to see what I can do to fit it, number one, in the hoop that I want to use, and number two, to get the colors so that they kind of stitch out and match. So the first thing I'm going to do is right click on the show hoop up here. So I'm going to right click, and I want to use the MIDI hoop. I'll say OK. Then I'm going to left click so that the hoop shows up, and I'll come into my zoom and say to hoop. And I can tell that I need to move the hoop so that it fits. And in order to do that, you come down here to the Multihooping tab. You touch the dotted hoop and rotate twice, 45, 45. Then I can come back to the Digitize toolbox, and now I know that that is going to fit fine in the hoop. Now the next thing I'm going to do is choose Design, Optimize Color Changes, and it says this will reduce the number of color changes from 22 to 11. Do I wish to continue? And I'm going to say OK. And so sure enough, it put the Henry and John and the outlines together, the black bumpers together, the blue cars. So it just combined from label to label, label to label, what's going on. Now I can tell that I would prefer to have these outlines not stitch with the letters. And so color changes are what will make that stop. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to hold the Alt key, and I'm going to grab the word Henry, Control Alt. I'm going to get John, and let's just make those red. Oops, let's get the rest of John. Control and Alt. The Alt key lets you select individual components of a grouped object without ungrouping it first. So now the labels will stitch, and then Henry and John will stitch. So the next thing I think I would like to do is to make the placement lines stitch, and I'm going to copy and paste that. And the pasted version of it will show up at the very end of everything. Down here, I'm going to give it its own color, and I'm going to move it to the start. So now what will happen is it's going to stitch on my stabilizer, and I will know where to lay down my fabric, and then it's going to stitch again and hold the fabric down, and then I can start sewing the label. So let's see. Oh, you know what? I need to do one more thing. I need to make sure that I have at least ½ inch in between these, because I'm going to need to cut them out with a seam allowance. Nope, I'm just going to draw a bounding box. Now that entire label is connected, and I'm going to scoot that down. Scoot it down as far as I can. So there's a cool tool, now that I moved those, to where I can see how far apart those are. I zoomed in, and I'm going to touch M, the letter M, on my keyboard for measure. M for measure. You see the little measuring? So I'll click there. To there is 0.874 inches. So that's well over ½ inch. So I can push escape twice and get rid of the M. And now I know that I'll have at least ½ inch in between, so that I don't have to worry about my seam allowance, because I need my ½ inch on the outside of this stitching all the way around. So there we go. This is Shelley Fitzgerald with Sew Shelley Quilts, and I thank you for joining me. Bye.